2021. I hereby appoint the Honorable Debbie Dingell to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Kibben.
Would you pray with me? Merciful God, we enter these chambers with a sense both of uncertainty and of indignation. The events of last week, the destruction, the damage, and the deaths of our fellow Americans are deeply disturbing. The seeds of discontent were sown across our country, and we have reaped the whirlwind. Almighty God, speak into this storm. Allow your Holy Spirit to descend upon the chaos and minister to our hearts. Still our fears that we would remain firm in our resolve. Still our anger that we would yield ourselves to your gracious design for this nation. Lord, vindicate your intent for us to serve as representatives, not just of our districts, but of your will. Your love, Lord, endures forever. We pray, do not abandon the work of your hands. And as the Spirit moves among us, inspire us again with your purpose. Stir in us anew the desire to serve you well and faithfully as we seek to serve this divided country. Call us to hear the words of your mouth and praise you with our lives this day and in the days to come. For we pray these things in the strength of your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pursuant to Section 5A1A of House Resolution 8, the Journal of the Last Day's Proceedings is approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Brownlee.
Place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, Madam, I hereby submit my resignation as Sergeant at Arms of the U.S. House of Representatives. It has been an honor to serve. Signed very respectfully, Paul D. Irving, Sergeant at Arms.
Without objection, the resignation is accepted. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 208A of the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1946, the chair appoints Timothy Paul Blodgett of the state of New York to act as and to exercise the duties of Sergeant of Arms of the House of Representatives, effective today. Oh, right there. Without objection, the chair will now administer the oath of office. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations. Without objection, the clerk lays before the House the following resolution.
House Resolution 22, resolution electing a member to a certain standing committee of the House of Representatives.
Without objection, the resolution is adopted and a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Without objection, the chair lays before the House the following resolution.
House Resolution 23, resolution electing a member to a certain standing committee of the House of Representatives.
Without objection, the resolution is adopted and a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on the Judiciary be discharged from further consideration of H-Res 21 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 21, resolution calling on Vice President Michael R. Pence to convene and mobilize the principal officers of the executive departments of the cabinet to activate Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to declare President Donald J. Trump incapable of executing the duties of his office and to immediately exercise powers as acting president.
For what purpose does the gentleman from West Virginia rise?
I object.
Objection is heard. Pursuant to Section 5A1B of the House Resolution 8, the House stands adjourned to 9 a.m. tomorrow.
All right, so the House then, this was expected to be a block right there, but now it will be on the floor tomorrow and up for debate there, where they are asking Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment there and try to remove President Trump from office, or there will be an article of impeachment on the floor. You're watching News Now from Fox, everybody, so this is going to be a very, very busy week right here on News Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Patient. Will be every step of the way with you here, as really just looks like history in the making once again, and we will be providing you step-by-step coverage there on Capitol Hill as the week does progress. Let's take a quick 2-minute break for some of you. When we come back, we'll take you out to New York City, where we are getting a live COVID-19 update.
Folks have been working hard, building up these sites, putting all the systems together. A lot of work to do ahead, but we know that we're going to be able to reach the folks who need this vaccine, and we're going to meet these goals. Here to tell you more about how this effort is building out, our Health Commissioner, Dr. Dave Choksi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I saw and heard during this very special weekend. At the South Bronx Educational Campus on Saturday, I saw a motivated team of health department staff and Medical Reserve Corps volunteers, eager to welcome their first guests for vaccination. I met staff trained in checking appointments on tablets, saw markers laid down directing guests where to go, and observed tables stocked with PPE, alcohol wipes, and sharps containers used to discard syringes. And yesterday, thousands of our fellow New Yorkers poured through the doors at 3 high schools in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, and other sites across the city. These individuals saw up close what many of us will be experiencing over the coming months. They booked appointments, they presented their proof of eligibility at the door, went directly to be vaccinated, and afterwards stayed in an observation room for about 15 minutes to be monitored, as well as to book a time for their second doses. They were then issued vaccine cards like this one. I know it's a simple piece of paper, but it's one that will help us to turn the page on this pandemic. The whole process of turning a vaccine into a vaccination takes about 30 minutes. Since you need 2 doses, that means that each of us is only an hour away from doing our part to beat back this pandemic. After one vaccination at Hillcrest High School in Queens, a medical assistant named Valeria Correa Gomez told a reporter that she took the vaccine to keep her friends and family safe. "It's science," she said. "I trust science. I love science." Valeria, I could not agree more. At another vaccination site that I visited over the weekend, they told me they added Kleenex to the vaccination stations because some people were crying tears of joy upon getting their shot. And indeed, it's hard not to get emotional as we think about what this vaccine means for our fellow New Yorkers. Today, another 50,000 appointments went online for vaccinations starting January 16th. I have a message specifically for New Yorkers 75 and older. If you have a regular provider or a hospital that you utilize for your care, reach out to them to coordinate care and see whether they can help to connect you to a vaccination. If not, we are excited to welcome you to one of our vaccine hubs. Call us at 877-VAX4NYC. That's VAX4NYC. We do ask New Yorkers to be patient with us as this program accelerates. Appointments fill up fast and demand is high. But we promise more are coming, particularly if the federal government increases our supply of vaccine. We will do our part to open more of our doors in the days ahead. But we also need others to accelerate their programs. To that end, we implore our federal partners working with CVS and Walgreens to pick up the pace for the nursing home vaccination program. They need to be vaccinating 7 days a week, including weekends. With cases rising by the day, the urgency could not be greater. And to New Yorkers who are now eligible, including healthcare workers, people 75 and older, educators, and first responders, go to nyc.gov/vaccinefinder to make an appointment today. This safe, free, and easy vaccine is a shot in the arm for the whole city. We look forward to seeing you at one of our sites. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Dave, and I really appreciate the emotion, the energy you described from your visit. And let me tell you something, that's what I saw at the Bathgate site in the Bronx. I saw folks who were excited to be getting the vaccine, and I saw really great frontline healthcare workers there to help people make sure they got what they needed. Excited to be helping so many of their New Yorkers fight back this disease once and for all. So a lot going on. Now, look, we made real progress by getting the approval of Category 1B so we could reach folks over 75, frontline essential workers, first responders. That's great. Now, we need to keep going, reach people as deeply as possible. We also need to work on some folks and helping out some folks who have special needs, thinking about our homebound seniors. And we're going to have an update on that in the next few days, an update on how we're going to reach our homebound seniors. That's going to be a special effort to reach people in particular need who need the vaccine. And I want to be clear to everyone, if you are over 75, please go out and get that vaccine. Again, there's a lot of appointments available, and some people are going to be looking for the exact right appointment for them, and it may take a few days, obviously. But the fact...
And we are going to take a quick 2-minute break right here on News Now from Fox.
Condition, everyone over 75 is welcome to get this vaccine now. And as our healthcare leaders have said repeatedly, single most vulnerable group of people, the single biggest determinant of vulnerability is that age group over 75 and over. So let's just get out there and get the vaccine. It's going to be a smart thing to do. When you get the vaccine, you're given immediately the date for your second dose. That reservation, that appointment is made right away. It's a very straightforward process. Again, safe, effective, fast, easy. So everyone, please, this is a great opportunity to stay safe. And for you, for your loved ones, this is something we want to make sure everyone gets who's ready. We're going to keep building this out. As I said, throughout the week, there'll be constant updates on new capacity that's being brought on. We as New Yorkers are not patient people. I only ask people to be a little patient with the fact that there's only so many slots available. That number is going to keep growing. So 175,000 doses will be given this week. And then it's going to go more the next week, more the week after that. And we know we'll be able to, over time, reach all New Yorkers. Okay, let me give you the indicators for the day. Number one, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. That today's report, 247 patients. Obviously too high. Hospitalization rate, 4.62 per 100,000. So again, these numbers continue to be a lot higher than we want. And at the same time, our hospitals are doing an absolutely outstanding job handling the situation. We're watching that all the time. again at this moment. Based on conversations with our healthcare leadership yesterday, hospital system continues to do well, thank God. Current new cases, today's number 4,904, way too high, obviously. And then number 3 percentage, New York City residents testing positive on the 7-day rolling average, 8.18%, also too high. Remember, everyone, if you can get vaccinated, but in the meantime, keep practicing those smart safety rules. We want everyone to keep their masks on for months. I've said it, up till June is our minimum time frame. We're talking about keep masks on, observe social distancing, avoid indoor gatherings, all these things so we can finish this mission once and for all. Few words in Spanish. Seguimos con nuestro compromiso.
A little bit later here on News Now from Fox, we'll take you back out to New York City there for the full update there from Mayor Bill de Blasio. But we want to keep you also in New York here for a live news conference that is going on right now featuring the personal injury attorney Ben Crump and the parents of Keon Harold Jr. and Reverend Al Sharpton holding a news conference today to provide an update in the case following the arrest of Mia Pacento. And Keon Harold Jr. was a 14-year-old black minor. He was attacked and accused of stealing Pacento's cell phone in the lobby of a Soho hotel where the Harolds were staying as guests. Her cell phone was later found in an Uber, and right now we are getting this live update right here.
A mother who is passionate about protecting her child. And so at this time, you will hear from a strong black man who is a father, a representative to fathers all across America, all across the world, how to raise your child and protect your child. And as he said better than anybody, Reverend Al, thank God that he allowed me to be there at the Arlo Hotel on December 26th, the day after Christmas, where they were trying to just enjoy themselves. They weren't asking for anything special. They were just trying to exist. Just like we're not asking for anything other than simple justice. Simple justice. We give you Mr. Keon Harold Sr.
Morning, everybody. I'm gonna read a little bit of this. I wrote a lot, but the elephant in the room is that my son was singled out because of his color. Many people have asked why this is a racial issue. Some comments ask me, why do we need a petition that has over 100,000 signatures to get justice? I wrote an op-ed in USA Today last week that talks about this, about how racism, about how bias is activated. If you saw that video, you seen the very, very, very simple things that happen that allow black people, people of color, to end up either dead, wrongly accused, fired, just because somebody said that they did something. This person, this criminal, because this person, I won't even say her name anymore. This is a criminal that I ask. All of the people who are around her, 2 DUIs, she attacks kids. You want this person? This person is a menace to society. Right. With no remorse. If you've seen the Gayle King interview, then you know. This person has no idea what she does, who she is, and how she activates the system. When I came downstairs with my son, if I had not been with him, what if I came down and those 2 people were on my son? I see not just black people, but white people, white men, saying what they would have done to her. You get what I'm saying? As a black man, there's 2 systems of justice. And I know for a fact that if I had done anything, y'all hear me? If I had done anything, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because there would be an award-winning trumpet player plastered all over the internet who abused some lady.
Yep.
And that is a fact. But it had to be perfect. It's the idea of like a no-hitter. How often do we see no-hitters? As a black man, we have to live a no-hitter life. Every day we come outside. Racism, when we walk outside, it's like putting on a shirt. You understand what I'm saying? I've been living this life for 40 years now. I'm from Ferguson. Everybody's seen what happened with Mike Brown.
Yeah.
I'm older than Mike Brown. So that means it was even worse then. When I didn't know that police shouldn't stop you just for the hell of it until I moved to New York City.
Wow.
That was in 1999. I was born in 1980. What I'm saying is this racial profiling thing is real. You don't have to say the N-word to act in a racist way.
Amen.
It's the biases, the implicit biases. It's the things that people look over. The Arlo looked right over my son. I asked the Arlo right now, even to this day, it's been since the 26th of December. The 26th of December, they have not advocated for me and my son one time against the criminal. Not one time. As a hotel patron, as a person, I was in the Arlo for 3 weeks. So if you can imagine how much money that is that I'm paying to this establishment, this person wasn't even a guest. Understand what I'm saying? That this person wasn't even a guest. So check this out, and this is a more visual representation of the Arlo Hotel lobby. My son and myself attacked, accosted, ridiculed, and lied on in front of a candy store in the lobby. My son, 14 years old, he's not a guy like Mia Pinsetto said, and she's not just a girl. That's a whole woman who has no character, who has no morale, who's been empowered by Chad at the Arlo Hotel. He should have stopped that before we even got downstairs. He should have stopped that before we even came out of the elevator. You have a person who still feels empowered to still say, even to today, that my son had her phone. I have 2 iPhones. I bought my son one. I could buy more. Why do I need her iPhone?
Exactly.
I guarantee my Rolodex is better than hers. I guarantee it. So in the context of it all, Arlo, very disrespectful. If we all seen the video, I called it out. I used my words to her, I used my words to Chad, and we were still attacked. And Arlo still hasn't come out to my defense. Okay, as a patron of an establishment, you chose to believe, and this is the problem, you don't have to be white for a system to be activated. Whatever she is, however she's identifying, she tapped Chad on the back like a video game, tapped him on the back and started that whole system. I asked this question to the Arlo. Why didn't they file a report against her?
Yeah, that's a great point.
They didn't file a report. I filed my own report. And you want to know what happened when I filed that report? When the officer showed up, he saw my son and said, "Oh my God, he's so tall. He's so tall." So the idea of racial profiling, the idea of looking at somebody and making these preconceived notions of who they are needs to stop. It needs to stop. It needs to stop today. So many of our people have been killed. The prison system is filled with people who didn't do anything, but they were just, their accusers were believed. Black people need to be believed. My son should have been believed.
Black people need to be believed.
My words matter. My son's words matter. And Arlo, you haven't given us any words.
No more, Arlo.
No more. I don't have much else to say. I'll just say, why haven't they defended me as a patron? So all of you people deciding on if you're going to stay there, as a matter of fact, 3 days ago, I got an alert from Airbnb to do a review on the Arlo. It's going to take me a little time. It's going to take me a little time for having the worst experience in my entire life. As a black man who has worked hard to simply take my son to brunch.
What did it take for you to have that much restraint?
Hold on. No questions yet. Wait. Okay. You want to finish your statement? Maybe we'll try to do it for the next one. Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
And we'll get to your questions after we hear from our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton, who has been instrumental in trying to help heal this family and hopefully in the healing try to make it a more just America, a better America. My mentor, my civil rights icon, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Yes. Thank you. When we left here a little over a week ago to meet with the DA, we asked that this lady be charged and arrested. But among the charges that we asked for was a hate crime. She has been arrested, but she has been only charged in part.
Amen.
She's been arrested for assault. She's been arrested for other charges. But it is not a complete charge if you do not charge her for what was the impetus of the rest of her crime.
Preach rare.
You cannot go to court and deal with a crime halfway through the crime. You have to start at the beginning of the crime. If you were to prosecute someone for robbing a bank, you have to start when they entered the bank, how they got in the bank, and then what they did in the bank. Racism is what started her crime.
Yeah.
Racism is what started the assault, because her assumption that this young black man was the one that took her cell was based on the color of his skin. Ask her, if it wasn't race, then what was it that made her identify him as the thief? She was visiting the hotel. He was registered in the hotel.
Preach rare.
So what made him the suspect when she's a visitor accusing a resident of violating her? So we are asking for the prosecutors as NYPD to complete the prosecution by beginning at the beginning. Don't go halfway through the crime and try to prosecute her.
Amen.
As far as the Arlo Hotel, clearly the accomplice to hate has been Chad and your hotel. Because how does your hotel employee come downstairs or come across the corridor and see a guest and see a patron and decide that the guest is the one that is the accuser and the one that is the patron is the one that's guilty? Yep. He made a racial decision that she must be telling the truth. Because this black guy, even though he's staying here, and they've spent thousands of dollars here for 3 weeks, a black man is guilty till proven innocent. And she must be telling the truth. To show you the nakedness of racism is when you take this young man and take her, the only one between them with a record of being arrested and accused of crimes was her.
Preach for him.
If you were going to deal with who had the capacity of breaking the law, it would have been her.
Yeah.
But her whiteness gives her immunity, and his blackness makes him a suspect.
Wow.
And that is why National Action Network joins in the call about the Arlo Hotel. The petitions are going to be signed. If we do not have this family made whole by what the Arlo Hotel and the owners of the Arlo Hotel Quadrum does by next week, we will begin, since we're a national organization, to put people in front of their hotels.
Yeah.
And we will start right here at the Arlo and have mass checkouts. Rather than people checking in, they need to check out. Wherever Quadrome is, check out. Show you stand against racism by checking out. Show you stand against racial profiling by checking out. Show that you will not stand for young black boys being criminalized by checking out. It's time for a national checkout on racism, on hate, on bigotry. We are tired of checking in, paying for people that disrespect us. Checkout time.
Checkout.
Checkout time.
Checkout.
Checkout time.
Check out.
Yes, sir. Check out time.
You want to acknowledge Ms. Carter?
Yeah, I want to acknowledge I asked to be with us today, the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr, who wanted to stand and be with the family.
Thank you, Reverend Al, as only you can make the point clear. No more Arlo. No more. If you don't step up, then we gonna check out. It's very clear. At this time, we will take your questions. They want to ask the little boy about how Keon is doing.
I'm sorry,
Can you repeat your question?
Yes, Sharon with CBS. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how your son. So he started therapy. At first, I asked him his official feeling. He said, "I don't feel anything, Mom." And I said, that's a feeling. That's feeling numb, right? And then he started asking questions about other incidents that have happened in the last year with him, because he's getting to a point where, our black children are no longer viewed as children. They're viewed as adults and a threat. So he started asking these questions. And then there was a silent time. And then we know that his outlet is music. So we provided this recording for him. And that was the first time that we saw his face light up. But there are moments that he just is in his room, he retreats. He can't look at his phone. It's everywhere. Why did we put it everywhere? Because no one would listen. I don't want this type of platform. I'm a musician. I'm an educator. I don't need this type of platform. But unfortunately, for our rights, we have to come to you. That's right. We have to win in the public opinion first.
Yeah.
That is sad. That's why we need a petition.
That's right.
So now he can't look at his phone. His friends are always asking him questions. I mean, you can see he's just trying to retreat.
The Arlo Hotel said to me this morning that they do apologize and that this should have never happened, and that more should have been done immediately. Keon, can you comment? And you said that you haven't heard anything from them.
I can't hear.
She said that the Arlo reach out to you. And before Keon speaks, I would just simply say this. The Arlo made a decision, their management, their security, made a decision to defend her, not to defend Keon and his 14-year-old son. Your actions speak so loud that we need not hear your words. And your actions, Arlo Hotel, was that there was no apology made until Keon and Kat used their resources, and they had thousands of people commenting on social media, and then they decide to put out an apology, if you can call it that.
Which has changed, and the comments are disabled.
Okay, and we're gonna let Keon speak to that apology, but also, why didn't they report her?
Yeah.
You know, why was it that he had to write a report against somebody who's attacking patrons in their hotel? Was it because they didn't respect this black man and his son as patrons? Because that's what the actions seem to suggest. I guarantee you this. Had Keon attacked a white teenager in their hotel, Arlo would have made a report on him. So that's why we say no more Arlo, no more Arlo,
No more Arlo. No more Arlo.
About the apology, they said that.
I mean, they sent an apology, but everybody's seen it, and it's changed, and now all of the comments are disabled on the website, you know. So, I mean, I feel like their apology is just as good as Mia Pincetto's on Gail's show. Yeah. It's not genuine. It's not real. At this point, it's not even about an apology. It's about change. It's about making things right. You know, it's about making guests feel like, you know, as a black person, I can simply enjoy myself, enjoy my holiday in a hotel, and not be racially profiled, not be attacked in the lobby, and know that the hotel, if anything were to happen, that the hotel would advocate for me, and not somebody who's not even. We know the name of the game is green. How is it that I'm paying the money and this person is okay and has carte blanche to attack me and my son? It's ridiculous. Wow. It really is ridiculous.
I just wanted to talk about the restraint that you had at them. Because not a lot of and not physically try to defend your child. What about the restraint that it took at that moment?
Okay, at the beginning, obviously nobody's seen the entire tape, but we've seen inklings of it. You've seen mine, then you've seen the thing that the NYPD put out. But that video goes on for about 4 minutes. So in the context of me protecting my son, I did what I had to do to protect my son, to keep this criminal, violent criminal. I mean, during her arrest, she resisted. We've seen the videos. I know I'm not alone. This person is a threat to society. And this person was allowed by Chad in the Arlo Hotel to attack my son. That's why I have a problem. So the idea of restraint, as a father, as a black man, again, my entire and only simple way of being was to literally just try to go get some chicken and waffles. Try out the restaurant. But even still, as a black man, realizing over and over again, my path is like this. My path is, there's not a lot of room for error if I do anything. Again, it's like I have to live the perfect game every day. So restraint is a part of my existence. Restraint is a part of my power. Restraint is a part of my, it's a part of my DNA.
Yeah. And I'll say this before we go to the next question. You have to always wonder if the roles were reversed and he had acted like Maya Pensada, whether at the hotel or whether during the arrest. What would have happened to a person of color when they went to arrest if they resisted? We know oh too well. We saw the prima facie evidence how they police black people in America versus how they police white people in America by what happened on January 6, 2020 at the Capitol. I mean, it's real. And, you know, we have visual evidence now that there are two justice systems in America. If they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1 billion words. So I shouldn't have to go on TV anymore to make a case that there are two justice systems in America, because everybody in America gets to see it with their own eyes. Yes, sir.
Attorney Crump, regarding this criminal to society, Mia, is there any insight as to who her parents are and why she seems to be so emboldened? Does she feel protected? What's going on there?
We're not aware of what privilege or what professions her family lineage is, but I know this. It seems that she continues to be slapped on the wrist.
That's right.
Always getting the benefit of the doubt. When Keon Jr. and Keon Sr. at the Arlo Hotel never got the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of consideration, or the benefit of possibility. But this Soho Karen, as she's been termed, continues to get the benefit of the doubt from every part of society. Yes, sir.
You met with the district attorney's office specifically to talk about the inclusion of hate crimes being a charge here.
We
Have you heard from Cy Vance Jr. about why? And can you talk about how crucial that is for justice to be served here?
Yes, it's very important, as Reverend Al said. We did have a discussion with him that we wanted them to look at this as a bias-related crime. They said they would investigate it. We plan to continue to insist that that be a strong element of the prosecution. Whether Cy Vance Jr. will do it or not, we don't know. But we know that you all, as the people of New York in Manhattan, have the power to tell him that we got to address the elephant in the room. We got to address the elephant in the room.
Gotta put him on blast. That's right. Keep him on blast.
Arlo Hotel, as far as hate crime charges and accomplice to hate crime charges, as the Reverend said.
Well, we have
he needs to be compensated for that.
We have
his son.
Okay. We have requested that the city officials, as well as the New York Attorney General, open a civil rights investigation into the Arlo Hotel.
Yes.
And it's very important because Attorney Filmster and Attorney Napoli and Attorney Azuai and I have gotten contact about other patrons feeling they were discriminated. I will share with you one that was particularly really riveting to me, because these were professional African Americans. Not that you have to be that accomplished, you should just be treated with dignity and respect because you're a person and that you're a patron. But they said, I do not recommend you stay here if you are a person of color. The woman at the front desk was only rude to people of color. I watched her turn away 3 customers, all of whom were people of color. She was not only racist, but she also was very disrespectful to my husband and I. I explained to her a problem with not having my physical credit card and having it on my cell phone. Instead of telling me initially that she could still be able to help us, she watched us frantically look for another method of payment, as she told us she needed to see my credit card. It wasn't until a Caucasian customer who had nothing but a phone and a passport on them was told there was an online form that could be filled out with payment information. After overhearing this and asking about that method, she then said, I guess you can do that, and offered it to me. It was all ended up in a screaming match because she was very unprofessional and wanted to argue with me the whole time. We didn't even end up staying at the hotel after everything was over because we refused to patronize a facility that would scream at us and treat us in such a disrespectful way. I do not recommend the Arlo Hotel. Horrible experience.
Wow.
Check out.
Wow.
Check out.
Check out.
Check out.
Check out. Check out. Check out.
With
All right, so that shot did freeze on us. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break right here for you on News Now from Fox.
It's not just about us. It's about...
Over 75 is about 560,000 people. Now, we can all count. We don't have the vaccine for 560,000 people in stock right now. So, and that's before you even talk about the healthcare heroes, first responders, essential workers. So the reality is we do have to recognize the reality that until we have sufficient vaccine, we're going to have to do this in stages. But I do want us to get as quickly as we can to the next group. They're very needy. We want to help them. And I think you said the key thing, Andrew. Let's see what demand levels are. I think one of my concerns in our experience in 1A was we kept saying to the state, we need this flexibility right now. We see what's happening on the ground. We know we're going to have a problem if we don't have this flexibility. Now we're going to watch how 1B plays out. We're going to watch what happens with our seniors and our essential workers and our first responders. We're going to see what level of pickup there is here. We know already in the 1A group that a lot of healthcare workers actually chose to take a pass in this first round. As we've said, that number is at least in the 30 to 40% range based on what we're seeing. Let's see over these coming days what happens with this new category. And if we see a lot of activity, then we're going to stay in 1B for a period of time. If we don't see a lot of activity, then we start the discussion on where to go next. Go ahead, Andrew.
Just part of the follow-up to that is one of the criticisms of your rollout and the state's rollout was that the infrastructure wasn't up and running, even though you knew for months that the vaccine was coming. So knowing that there will be a 1C and beyond that, the general population of New York City to get the vaccine, how confident are you that the infrastructure for that will be ready the moment you need it to be?
Andrew, again, I respect questions. I respect criticisms. They help us to do our job better, but I also respect reality. The fact is, we just vaccinated 100,000 people in a week. We're going to vaccinate 175,000 this week. We're going to do 1 million doses in the month of January. The question is not capacity at this point. The question is, are we going to have enough vaccine? That's what's going to happen in the month of January. So let's be clear about the fact that all these good people putting this effort together are meeting demand. The question, and I said it from the day I told you there would be 1 million doses in January, the question is whether the federal government, state government, manufacturers are going to be able to keep up with the amount of capacity that we put out there. We'll keep building. That's the bottom line. So long as there are the healthcare workers that we need to do this work, we'll keep building out, building out, building out. We'll go to absolute maximum. Nothing's more important than getting this vaccine to people. But my great concern right now is, will the supply be there to match demand and to match our capacity?
The next is Jenna DeAngelis from WCBS.
Good morning, Mayor de Blasio.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Never a dull moment, Jenna.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. So we're seeing vaccine sites open and more coming as you announced, but how many people does the city actually have vaccines for, and when do you expect the next shipment to come?
Right now, I'll turn to Dr. Choksi. We have been updating folks publicly on the supply we have on hand. Now, that supply keeps being reduced, obviously, as the numbers of folks vaccinated start accelerating. So we have enough for this coming week, for sure, enough to get into the next week. But if we keep accelerating the amount of shots we're giving, there's a point where we run out unless we get a faster resupply. So we're good for this week. We're good for going into next week, but then it starts to become more of a question. Dr. Choksi.
That's exactly right, Mr. Mayor. We have approximately 230,000.
We're going to take another quick 2-minute break right here for you on News Now from Fox.
100,000 doses delivered this week. Generally, those deliveries take place on Tuesday and Wednesday. So that gives us some modest resupply. But just as the mayor said, because we are ramping up our operations so significantly, we are concerned about the numbers that will get resupplied from next week onward. And that's where we need the federal government both to be able to provide adequate supply, but also to give us those numbers far enough in advance so that we can plan it out with respect to our operations.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jenna.
and you've been talking about this throughout this news conference, but for seniors who don't have internet or technology, how will the city reach out to them so they know there's a phone number to call or that a vaccine is even available to them at this point?
Excellent question. We're doing a big outreach effort, and I would like to turn to Dr. Choksi and then Dr. Long, because this is something we recognize, Jenna, from the beginning. It's great to have all these sites, and it's great to have a phone number for people to call, but if they don't know about the phone number, it doesn't help them much. So the way to address that is to go to all of the organizations that work with seniors, to local leaders, elected officials, faith leaders, everyone who connects to seniors to get the message out. This is available. First, Dr. Choksi, then Dr. Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just add a few details to the approach that you've described. And really, my starting point on this is to think about the patients that I've taken care of who are older, as well as my parents, other loved ones who are older, to think about what they would need to be able to navigate to get this much needed vaccine. And so we have to use many, many different approaches because people have different ways of accessing information and different levels of being able to connect with the resources that are available. We started with the website. We announced this phone number, 877-VAX4NYC today. We'll also be doing more proactive outreach with robocalls to seniors to guide them to the places that they need to get to, including our hotline, to be able to understand how to sign up for an appointment slot. But it's really important to know that even though we will be pulling out all of the stops as a city, the places that many older New Yorkers go to are the folks whom they trust, whether it's their family doctor, whether it's the Meals on Wheels that they rely upon, whether it's friends or family members or caregivers. So equally, we are partnering with all of those people, particularly through our colleagues at the Department for the Aging, to ensure that they have the information they need to help connect seniors to resources as well. The final thing that I'll say is that we're making a concerted push with our clinical colleagues in geriatrics. These are the people who have dedicated their careers, their lives to taking care of older people, and so we're going to be leveraging that network as well.
Thank you. Dr. Long.
Yeah, I would just add one point onto what Dr. Choksi said, which is that one thing that unites all of our seniors together is we're all united in that we have primary care relationships. So we're really going out to our primary care providers and making this a community-based effort to get the word out through our trusted community health centers, through our trusted doctors. That starts with both phone calls, but also being able to have our doctors armed with the right information to be able to talk about the importance and the safety of the vaccines. I'm a primary care doctor in the Bronx, so being at Bathgate for me yesterday was a little bit of an emotional experience. I have many patients 75 and above that have been eagerly waiting the vaccine, and it's my job as their doctor to educate them about it, get them to take it, and the overwhelming thought in my mind is they deserve this, and I'm so happy to be able to protect my patients now.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Long. Go ahead.
The next is Sydney Pereira from Gothamist.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for taking my question.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well today. Thank you. So I wanted to bring up some issues with the website as well, the website system as well. I know you've talked a lot about digital literacy, but people are bringing up, local elected officials are bringing up how there's various different websites, one with health and hospitals, one with the Department of Health, and people are having trouble going through the lengthy questionnaires and also creating an account just to schedule an appointment. And I'm wondering if you would want to talk about any efforts to streamline the online system and to make it more simple. I know you've talked about the hotline, but is there any plans to just streamline these online systems to make it a little bit more clear on and more simple?
Yeah, absolutely. Sydney, look, we absolutely want the simplest possible system. Folks are going through a lot. We want them to have as easy an experience as possible making their appointments. That said, there's really important information that is required by law. and we got to get that right up front. So that's the balance point here. Unlike a situation, if we were doing something just said anyone, everyone come on down, might be a much easier scenario. But by law, we have to know certain information. We obviously have to get the fact that people fit in the priority situation that we're talking about now with 1A and 1B. So there are some challenges there. But what we do find as we put any system into play, that we improve it as we go.
And News Now from Fox continues. Live look right now outside of the Twitter World Headquarters in San Francisco. There was supposed to be a President Trump, pro-supporters there trying to do a rally outside of the Twitter headquarters, a protest. But right now, you can see not a lot of action right there. We'll keep an eye on it right here for you on News Now from Fox. Also, we are waiting to see, will today be the day that President Trump makes a statement on camera to talk about the big tech shutdowns that he is seeing, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and many more, taking him away from those platforms and able to communicate to his fan base there. So we'll keep an eye on all of that right here on News Now from Fox. It is setting up to be a really busy week as House Democrats look like they could have another article of impeachment on President Trump a little bit later this week, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. A lot of moving parts right now, so we'll keep you updated on all of that right here on News Now from Fox, always taking you out to the live events. We got one going on right now. We'll head out to New York. It looks like the State of the State address there from Governor Andrew Cuomo is happening right now. We'll take you out there live, and if any news breaks from across the country, as well as any Capitol updates, we'll bring that to you right here on News Now from Fox as well.
And New York State knows how to get things done. And New York State knows how to build. We've proved it over and over and over again, and now is the time to do it. We will also expand the infrastructure of tomorrow. The infrastructure of tomorrow is our broadband system. Today, broadband discriminates by race and income. We have invested $500 million to successfully expand broadband access, and 98% of the state now has access to broadband. But New York will also lead the nation now in making broadband affordable, because accessibility is not enough if it's not affordable. And because without affordable broadband, people are not just disconnected, they are disenfranchised. Broadband must be available to everyone, everywhere. And in New York, we will make sure it is. We will then launch the most aggressive green economy program in the country. COVID is the existing threat, but climate change is the existential threat. New York will be the green energy capital of the world. We will not only construct renewable projects, we will develop manufacturing capacity, research and development expertise, and state-of-the-art worker retraining, all here in New York, and we will do it this year. We will then set our sights to repair our social infrastructure. And that starts with our fundamental responsibility as a society and as a government to ensure public safety. Last year exposed the tensions between the community and the police more starkly than ever before. This is a national crisis. Feelings are deep and complex. Emotions run high on both sides. But divorce is not an option. We all need an effective public safety function. It's not just a question of criminal justice, but also social, economic, and racial justice. We have a scourge of gun violence. The victims of crime are predominantly poor, Black, and Latino. In New York City, in the last 6 months of 2020, there were over 1,200 shootings, double from 2019. Of those shootings, 94% involved Black or Latino victims. and well under half have been solved. There can be no economic revival without effective public safety. This is especially true for our cities. If the attractions of a city are reduced and crime is increased, urban decline is inevitable. That point has been made over and over again through the economic cycles in our cities, and we will not allow it to happen again. Public safety, like so many other functions, must adapt to the times. There are many new questions to answer. Does every 911 call require an armed police officer to respond? What role should mental health and domestic violence professionals play in public safety? What is the transparency and disciplinary policy? What is the use of force policy? But some elements are absolute. Mutual respect is absolute. Individual rights are absolute. Rejecting brutality is absolute. Allowing police to do their job and do it safely is absolute. But for most issues, there is no top-down solution, one-size-fits-all approach. We have 500 communities with police departments in New York, and each one must develop an approach that works for them. Now, I have said that each community must redesign public safety in a collaborative process, include all stakeholders, all opinions, all voices, have the conversation. And then they must pass a law instituting a new public safety function, and they must do it by April in order to receive state funding. This is an imperative for the state and every community within the state. Now, many communities have seized the opportunity and are already making good progress. In Steuben and Ulster counties, citizens and officials are using listening sessions and surveys to increase participation. Syracuse launched the Citizen Dashboard to track development and implementation of each reform. Schenectady has created a diverse citizen advisory panel to help evaluate new applicants for the police force. Yonkers is developing a new policy for dealing with people who are emotionally disturbed. Binghamton enlisted a professional institution to help in their redesign. And Salamanca has the distinction of being the first locality to complete and pass a new plan. April 1 is just weeks away. Elected leaders must lead, and people must engage now. Reforming public safety is hard, but in life, we will never solve a problem that we refuse to acknowledge or for which we deny reality and responsibility. Problems don't just go away, they mount. This is a national crisis, but New York will lead. We will also set the bar higher for a post-COVID war reconstruction. The damage to repair is not just from COVID. The low tide in America has exposed fundamental schisms and flaws in our society. Now, we have seen the riptides building over these past few years. We saw the racism in the KKK parading on the streets in Charlottesville. We lived through the anti-Semitism and the shootings at the Tree of Life Synagogue and across the country. The distrust exploding after the George Floyd killing. And last week, we all watched in horror an attempted coup at the Capitol. These demons may not be new, but they are worse. Visionaries that have had the ability to see beneath the surface of America have long warned of the ugly reality below. Governor Mario Cuomo spoke of the danger of two Americas 40 years ago. But the low tide has exposed the ugliness for all to see. Today, there is no denying the injustice, and rhetoric is not the solution. The public is tired of unfilled political promises. Results are the solution. Doing justice is the solution. True justice, racial justice, social justice, economic justice, and that must be New York's banner to carry in America's post-COVID reconstruction. Let's tell the plain truth. Blacks died from COVID at twice the rate of whites. That's the truth. Latinos died at 1.5 times the rate of whites. That's the truth. Education divided by race and class as remote learning furthered the divide. That's the truth. We saw the lack of access to affordable child care disrupt low-income families and force caregivers, primarily women, to choose between putting food on the table and caring for their children. That's the truth. We have thousands of tenants and owners who lost their jobs and livelihoods through no fault of their own, and we will not leave them behind. We will provide them the resources they need for rent and mortgage relief to keep New Yorkers in their homes, and that's the truth. And New York must do more to protect homeowners and tenants by prohibiting penalties and late charges on past rent. Many small businesses have been decimated by COVID, and we must protect them from eviction and help them reopen and restart. The pandemic has illustrated once again that health care must be affordable for all. And I propose this year we eliminate premiums for 400,000 more low-income New Yorkers. Our new Americans have suffered mightily from increased discrimination over these past few years. We must ensure all immigrants are protected and have legal counsel by fully funding our Liberty Defense Project. We see undocumented New York families struggling to survive with no financial assistance. The federal government should provide these undocumented New Yorkers with hardship funding. And if they don't, they should at least allow New York State to do it. We have seen elections determined weeks after Election Day. This fuels distrust in our system. We must pass a law mandating boards of election perform professional, accurate, timely, and complete counts. The housing problem in our cities has gotten worse. But the crisis of growing vacancies in our commercial property provides an opportunity. We should convert vacant commercial space to supportive and affordable housing, and we should do it now. Take the negative and make it a positive. Homeless shelters must be available, safe, and secure. It's not just our moral obligation, it is our legal obligation. My friends, rest assured, we can see the future, and it is bright. We just have to get from here to there. And that's what we need together, to do together. The old saying is true, fortune favors the bold. Well, this is another once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. America must seize this moment of international transformation. Some countries will succeed and some will fail. Some regions will rise and some will fall. But this is a moment that is made for New Yorkers. This will be a moment to reimagine, reinvent, and recreate. Life is about change and growth. Will we restore what we had? No, but neither should we try. Life is about moving forward. An enlightened society learns from its challenges, makes adjustments, and forges ahead better than before. That is the New York story. That is our destiny. And I am confident and optimistic that we can do this, and my confidence is not uninformed or wishful or blind optimism. My confidence is born from experience. I know how difficult our challenge is going to be. I know the height of the mountain. I hear the naysayers, I hear the hate mongers, I hear the voices of doubt and insecurity, I hear the fears of those without the confidence to build or the vision to dream. But I know who we are, and what we can do. And I know what we have done. Do you remember last spring? Do you remember what New Yorkers did in their darkest hour? I hope so, because I will never forget it. When COVID ambushed New York, and we went from one case to hundreds of cases in a matter of days, when sirens filled the night stillness and mass graves were dug on Hart Island, when fear gripped New Yorkers like a vice, when the global experts told us there was no way we could slow the spread. But New Yorkers said, yes, we could, and yes, we would, and they wouldn't give up. And New Yorkers united, and they rose to the occasion. That is New York at her best. That is the New York miracle. Time and again, we have heard the voices of doubt and defeat. The state can't do a budget on time. We can't enact common sense gun safety. We can't pass marriage equality. We can't raise the minimum wage. We can't fix subway tunnels. We can't build a new Tappan Zee Bridge. We can't turn around the Buffalo economy. We can't end the AIDS epidemic. We can't provide free college tuition for the middle class. We can't construct a new Penn train hall. They were wrong. We did. We can't only if we believe we can't. That is what we mean when we say New York tough. The understanding that there are moments that actually liberate our capacity and potential. When the little strings that hold down the giant that is New York are torn away. When incompetent government is overpowered by the competence of good people. When petty divisions give way to the power of unity, when self-doubt is overcome by self-confidence, when the voices of our better angels win the day. We have seen this over the past year, that ordinary New Yorkers, nurses, doctors, truck drivers, train operators, teachers, construction workers, food clerks, are not ordinary in any way, but rather extraordinary in every way. Over the last year, when forces were trying to convince this country that the strongest...
We're going to take a quick 2-minute break right here for you on News Now from Fox.
Love, and that love wins every time. There is an indomitable power in our New York credo. The strength of one people, black, white, brown, Asian, upstate, downstate, straight and gay, all pulling in one direction. It is unbeatable, undeniable, and undebatable. We say it in our state seal in just 3 simple, beautiful words, e pluribus unum, out of many one. And we know the direction we are all headed. We are all headed up. It is our state motto, Excelsior. Ever upwards. New York State is the state of aspiration and excellence. That is New York's legacy. That's what made us the progressive capital of the nation. We have done this throughout history. We did it last year when times were tough, and we will do it again this year, and New York will lead the way. Thank you, and God bless you.
That was the address there from Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, talking about what the year was in the past there for 2020, and then what they have to look for the future. All right, there in 2021 amid a global pandemic there, as New York and New York City continue to fight on right here. Now, we're going to continue to bring you the very latest here from across the country right here on News Now from Fox. Going out to another live event. Let's get you the COVID-19 update from New Jersey right now.
The transmission rate is once again above the benchmark of 1, meaning an increasing spread of this virus. Now, if we look at our calendars, we note that it is January 11th. We had anticipated, as I said, an increase in positive tests coming out of the holidays, and it is safe to say that we are now experiencing that increase. This is likely from indoor gatherings where neither social distancing nor wearing a face mask were adhered to. And this is what we were afraid of, people letting their guard down over Christmas and New Year's and spreading the virus among their families and friends. And for the next upcoming days, we're probably going to see the impact of this. Now moving on to our hospitals. The recent increase in positive tests has not yet, and I say not yet with a fingers crossed, is that fair to say, led to a spike in hospitalizations, and we certainly hope it remains the case. As of last night, there were 3,653 total patients being treated in our hospitals. 3,402 of them were known COVID. 251 were persons under investigation awaiting tests. Before we move on, just repeat the past week of where we are in total hospitalizations, because as we've said many times, this is the number that we cannot allow to overrun us. So to 7 days ago, 3,633, 3,702, 3,744, 3,711, 3,669, 3,638, 3,589, 3,653. It is bouncing in a range, and it's been bouncing in that range plus or minus with a couple of anomalies for at least a month. We just have to hope it stays in that range or starts going south. That's what we need. So of this amount of these patients, 649 of them were in intensive care, and there were 438 ventilators in use. Throughout the day yesterday, 347 live patients were discharged, 377 new COVID positive patients were admitted, and again, at the risk of comparing apples to oranges, 43 not yet confirmed deaths were reported in our hospitals. We are announcing with a heavy heart an additional 51 confirmed COVID-related deaths today, bringing the cumulative total of confirmed deaths to 17,873. Another 2,059 deaths remain listed as probable. Let's now remember, if we can, 3 of those who we have recently lost. We begin today with this gentleman, Keith Wong. Keith was 91, and while he had most recently called Philadelphia home, as I noted before, once you're a New Jerseyan, you're always a New Jerseyan, and Keith called both Bloomfield and Milltown home for more than half a century. Keith was born in Hong Kong and came to the United States 67 years ago. He was a biochemist by training and trade, and also held an MBA from Monmouth College, and worked for some of the legendary companies in the sciences who called New Jersey home: Schering, E.R. Squibb, and Carter Wallace. He loved classical music and opera, taking in as many live performances as he could. He was an avid tennis player and the organizer of the Chinese American Cultural Association's tennis club. Keith was also an avid photographer. And when his son, Ed, with whom I had the great honor of speaking last week, participated in the Boy Scouts as a youth, Keith was right there alongside him as the assistant scoutmaster for Boy Scout Troop number 33. So Keith now leaves Ed and his daughter-in-law, Dr. Kathleen King, and his daughter, Amy. He's also survived by his grandchildren, Keith's son and daughter, Keith and Sarah. He also leaves his sister, Rebecca, who lives in Auckland, New Zealand. Keith is now reunited with his late wife, Mei Yuen, who passed away just 6 months ago. We thank Keith for being a part of our New Jersey family for so long, and may God bless and watch over him, and may he be remembered fondly by all. Next, we honor the life of Richard Stipe. Richard was 79 years old and dedicated more than 50 years of service to the United States Postal Service at the post office in his hometown of Robbinsville, nearby here in Mercer County. He spent so much time there that his wife, Emma, with whom I had the great honor of speaking last week, joked that the post office was his second home. Richard leaves behind Emma and his grandson, Brian. He also leaves his sister, Carol. And of course, he leaves behind his family at the Robbinsville post office. We know everyone will remember him with warm hearts and smiles that will once again come across faces when he comes to mind. May God bless you, Richard, and thank you for your many years of service. And finally, for this Monday, we remember Michael Meaney, who was a lifelong resident of Moorestown in Burlington County. Mike was 81 years old when he passed due to complications from COVID 3 weeks ago today. He was just 9 days shy of his 82nd birthday. Mike was an avid ham radio operator of W2OF and was active in multiple radio clubs for many years. His interest in radio grew from his service in the United States Navy, which he joined following his graduation from Moorestown High School. Following his discharge, he began working for RCA Global Engineering, a job that took him to an array of interesting places, including the shores of Thule and Greenland. He also served with the New Jersey State Marine Police. RCA Global Engineering was one of the contractors working with NASA on air-to-ground communications throughout the 1960s. And while aboard the USNS Coastal Sentry, Mike was involved with ensuring communications with Mission Control during the first moon landing. Back home in New Jersey, along with his ham radio passion, Mike was an avid boater and was an avid volunteer aboard the battleship New Jersey. He now leaves behind his wife, Sandra, after 57 years of marriage. He also leaves behind his son, Michael, and daughter, Megan, and their significant others, along with 3 grandchildren, Sophia, Gabrielle, and Genevieve. And he's also survived by his sister, Catherine. I had the honor of speaking with his wife, Sandra, and son, Michael, last week. What a guy. What a tremendous piece of human history to have played a role in. For a lifetime spent in New Jersey with service, with thanks for his service to our nation, we honor Michael, and may God bless and watch over him. 3 more distinctly Jersey lives, all lost to this second brutal wave of COVID-19. For them and for the families they leave behind, we must find it within us to keep up with the practices that have become our routine for the past 10 months. Social distancing, wearing our face masks, washing our hands frequently, using common sense. We're not done with this virus yet, and it's not done with us. Even with 214,433 vaccinations already logged and counting, we have a long way to go. But we will get there. Let's just do all that we can to make sure that we all get there together. Now, finally, as we also do every day, let's put a spotlight on another of our small business leaders who's helping our economy stay strong for the future. And when I say stay strong today, I mean that literally. This is Mike Piercy, and he runs The Lab, an athlete training center in Fairfield. Mike is a former professional baseball player, multi-award-winning personal trainer, and author. And his team help budding athletes and regular folks alike achieve their fitness goals. When the pandemic hit and forced Mike to scale back The Lab, he worked through the Tara Dowdell Group throughout the New Jersey, or rather through the New Jersey Economic Development Authority's application process, and was able to receive grants that helped him cover expenses. The Tara Dowdell Group has done really good work, by the way, particularly for minority-owned small businesses and the engagement they have had with the Economic Development Authority. We've spoken many times about the importance of sports for not just physical health, but mental health through the pandemic. I had the opportunity to chat with Mike last week, and Pat, you'll be happy to know I told him I was not going to mess with him. And he's doing all that he can to keep our residents fit and focused for the days ahead. Check them out at thelabsports.com, thelabsports.com. And I think that's a good place for us to leave it today. But before I close, a program note that at 1 o'clock tomorrow, 1 p.m., we will stream my State of the State address via our social media channels. The past year brought us many, many challenges, that we know, but we have also had tremendous opportunities that lay right before us in 2021. We're ready for this new day, and I encourage you to join me tomorrow as we reach for that day together. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the woman to my left, the Acting Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Education. Please help me welcome Dr. Angelica Allen Mcmillan.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, for the opportunity to participate in today's press conference. When the administration announced the reopening of New Jersey schools to in-person instruction last August, we acknowledged that the 2020-2021 school year would look different than any other in New Jersey's history. The health and safety standards required to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 among students and staff necessitated a complete reimagining of school schedules, operations, and instruction and support delivery models. I must once again commend our educators who have done yeoman's work upholding New Jersey's high-quality education system against those unprecedented stressors. One of my most important priorities to support students and educators in that work has been to extend compassion and flexibility in how our state uses student and educator performance data, and in how schools utilize their staffing resources. While maintaining the rigor and quality of our accountability systems must remain our North Star, it is undeniable that implementing brand new instructional models has forced changes in how to effectively use performance data. It is also undeniable that the pandemic has forced our teachers and administrators to take on new roles and confront new challenges to meet a district's educational and operational needs. That is why I am so proud to join the governor today as he announces the signing of Executive Order 212. The flexibility granted by this order represents a meaningful and significant step in further adapting our education system to meet the challenges posed by COVID-19. Specifically, Executive Order 212 is designed to address three challenges. Current seniors are in their second year, marked by varied access to the standardized assessments traditionally required for high school graduation. New learning models hinder the effective use of student growth objectives as measures of educator effectiveness. And substitute teachers have served as a critical resource for schools and district staff operating at maximum capacity. To that end, the order does three things. First, it waives the state graduation assessment requirement for current seniors who have met all their other graduation requirements. Second, it eliminates the use of student growth objectives in educators' summative evaluation scores for this school year, while maintaining schools, systems, and procedures for developing and measuring students' growth and progress. And third, it expands the maximum length of time that certain substitute teachers may serve in the same teaching position in a single district. The expanded time limits will be in place for the remainder of the public health emergency. All three of these actions are the result of sustained engagement with stakeholders and practitioners whose voices remain critical components of our decision-making. These voices keep the New Jersey Department of Education abreast of our state's ever-evolving teaching and learning conditions.
We're going to take another quick 2-minute break right here for you on News Now from Fox.
And other stakeholders whose voices and advocacy made known the need for this executive order. Our collaborative work will help ensure that schools and districts have the flexibilities necessary to better address students and educators' instructional and support needs, while maintaining stability and continuity in classroom instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica, and thanks for your leadership, and great to have you on the team. Blessings. With that, please help me welcome the woman to my right, who needs no introduction, the Commissioner of the Department of Health, Judy Persichilli.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Well, it was an exciting morning as the Governor and I marked the opening of the second mega vaccination site in the state at the Rowan College of South Jersey. The site will ramp up as the supply of vaccine increases, and ultimately we'll be able to vaccinate more than 2,000 individuals a day. We cannot thank the Gloucester County officials, Rowan College, the New Jersey State Police, and the National Guard enough for standing up that site. Putting together a large-scale vaccination site is a massive undertaking that requires immense collaboration and many hours of hard work. It was great to see vaccinations underway at another mega site. With every vaccination given, we come closer to the light at the end of the tunnel, where we can move beyond this epidemic. We are on our way to a better future. I do want to remind everyone, however, that because the demand for vaccine is currently greater than the supply, we are vaccinating only healthcare workers in the 1A category and sworn law enforcement and fire personnel from the 1B category, as well as residents and staff of the state's high-risk congregate settings. We are trusting the integrity of all of you to do the right thing in this regard and not, quote unquote, jump the line. We know everyone is anxious, but we're asking for your patience as we await a larger supply of the vaccine. We currently do not require documentation to prove eligibility, just you, just your most trustful part of you. We are excited that more than 1 million individuals have pre-registered for vaccination, and we don't want to discourage anyone, but right now we have a situation where the demand is much greater than the supply. Therefore, the focus will be those at highest risk of morbidity and mortality, and those in police and fire who have a high risk of exposure and are essential to protect public health and safety and respond to 911 calls. We wish we had enough for everyone, but again, demand at this time is greater than the supply. For individuals who want to pre-register for vaccine, they can visit covidvaccine.nj.gov. As I told you, over 1 million New Jerseyans have taken advantage of pre-registration so that they will be called up when their time comes and vaccine is available. As the governor shared, we're launching our dashboard today. As of 11 a.m., 214,433 doses have been administered. The dashboard, which will be updated daily, will include a breakdown of administrations by county and by gender and race and ethnicity. Moving on to my daily report, again, as the governor shared, our hospitals report 3,653 hospitalizations of COVID-19 positive patients and PUIs. That was last evening. And that number is staying pretty stable, between 3,500 and 3,700 hospitalizations. There are 649 individuals in critical care. 67% of them are on ventilators. Since our last briefing on the 6th, there have been 2 new reports of multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. There are a total of 75 cases in our state. The governor reviewed the new cases and deaths. In terms of deaths, the breakdown by race and ethnicity is as follows: white 55.2, black 17.1, Hispanic 19.5, Asian 5.2, and other 2.9. At the state veterans home, sadly, there has been one additional death at the Vineland home. The individual was in hospice, and we are awaiting the confirmatory death certificate. At the state psychiatric hospitals, there have been 7 new cases among our residents since our last briefing, 2 at Ancora, 4 at Ann Klein, and 1 at Trenton Psych. The statewide positivity as of January 7th is 11.32%, the northern part of the state 10.14%, central 11.69%, and the southern part of the state 14.15%. That concludes my daily report. Stay safe, continue to mask up, socially distance, wash your hands frequently. If you're sick, stay home, call your doctor, and get tested. And for each other and for us all, please take the call and remember to download COVID Alert NJ app. Thank you.
Judy, thank you. And thank you for the update as always and for your leadership. And I will tell you, going on the road and seeing these sites as they're set up, the pictures are good, but being there is just seeing the energy, the activity, the service, many folks volunteering, I might add. It's really impressive. We get the feds to get us more of the doses to put through the system. We've got the infrastructure in place. I'm completely confident of that. And thank you for your leadership on that and so much else. Pat, tell us, how did the vaccination feel? Where'd you get it, by the way? And compliance. I know there's been at a minimum, a lot of ABC activities since we were last here, right?
Thanks,
Welcome.
Governor. Good afternoon. I received the Moderna vaccine at Morristown Medical Center, and the staff couldn't have been any more accommodating. And yeah, I'm honored to be a part of that, and I hope folks seeing me get it instills public trust in the vaccine. I'll be back there in about 4 weeks. With regard to compliance, since we last met, Patterson police report the owner of Bisan Cafe was cited, as was Mazaj Lebanese Cuisine. Also, although a bit of a lag in reporting, they also reported that they attended a New Year's Eve, a large New Year's Eve party that they found in a warehouse where there was approximately 60 people. The promoter of that event was cited. And to your point with regard to ABC, on Friday night, ABC conducted 66 inspections in both Bergen and Hudson County and cited 12 different establishments. On Saturday, ABC did 16 compliance inspections and cited 3 establishments in Essex Gov. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Great being with you this morning and in Morris last weekend. I thought Dr. Palmer, the first speaker today, African-American health professional in Gloucester County, made a really good point about the notion of, particularly for communities of color, particularly with the Tuskegee and other chapters in our history, to be able to stand up there as a role model and say, this thing is safe, it works, we can all partake. Hope everyone's okay back there. So with that, again, we will be with you virtually tomorrow. Again, we have a White House call, at least at the moment, scheduled at 2 o'clock. I want to point of personal privilege, give a shout out to our former colleague, Justin Deuce, who's just been announced as joining President-elect Biden's counsel office in a very senior position. Justin's a great guy, incredibly talented, is richly deserving of that. And again, unless you hear otherwise from us, we'll be back together live here at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. With that, Dustin, we'll start with you, if that's okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you aware of a planned armed protest planned in Trenton on Sunday? If so, what security measures is the state taking, and is it doing anything to add more protection at the State House or elsewhere? What role, if any, will the National Guard play? Has anyone from New Jersey been arrested in connection with last week's storming of the Capitol? On vaccines, of the 1 million people registered on the site, do you have a rough breakdown of what phases they fall in? Is New Jersey considering phasing in those over 75 like New York did this week? If so, when? And if not, why not? And the last question, with no real holidays coming up where people travel and gather over the next 3 months, do you think that should help bring down the cases and spread? And with that apparent holiday spike beginning, what do you expect to see in terms of hospitalizations and deaths the next couple of weeks? Thanks.
I'll jump in on some of these and then ask either Pat, Jared, or Judy, depending on what the topic is, to come in. We're very much aware of the discussed protests on January 17th, and I think on January 20th as well, but more likely on the 20th in the nation's capital. Pat and Jared will, I think, forgive me and agree that we're not going to get into much detail on this, but needless to say, we're taking nothing for granted. Do you want to add any of that, Jared, or you're good?
I think that hits it. We're putting all the resources available to make sure that violence doesn't happen in New Jersey.
I do not know if anyone has been arrested from New Jersey from the Capitol from last week. Are you aware, Pat? Jared, Paramel?
Not at this time.
Not that we're aware of. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And then, Judy, these largely will go back over to your direction. Of the 1 million plus folks who are pre-registered, I'm not aware of what groups they're in, but perhaps you are. Although that is known because you have to self-identify as to who you are. I don't know about the 75 plus, Dustin, but we will clearly, as we mentioned last week when we opened up police and fire, this is going to be a series of overlapping waves. And if we feel like we've got confidence in the supplies coming out of the feds, we will not let any grass grow, but nothing yet to report on that. And I would think the lack of holidays is a positive data point. The weather, unfortunately, being cold in the middle of January is a negative data point, without question, and people letting their guard down doesn't help us. But I do think that largely there are some holidays, but we've got Martin Luther King Day, for instance, a week from today, but we don't have any holidays in the next few weeks that are like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve. I would think that is a positive data point. But Judy, anything you want to add on especially the 1 million folks who have signed up and or your Tina's views on the holidays?
We have the breakdown, Dustin, but I don't have it with me, but I'll make sure you get it. And it's self-identification, but I just don't have it with me.
And would you agree that Tina, fewer holidays is a good thing, right?
Well, ensuring that we keep our guard up is probably the best safeguard, as well as getting the vaccination rates up. What we can say based on what we're seeing with our EpiCurve data right now, like disease over time, is that, yes, we did have a small peak at the end of November, beginning of December, and then kind of, started to see the cases trend down a little bit. And then we saw a little bit of a bump after the week after, roughly the week after Christmas. So, I think we still have to continue to watch and monitor, but, hopefully with the ongoing vigilance on top of less holidays and opportunities for gathering, we'll continue to see this trend toward less cases.
Tina, your view, if I may ask you now that you're on center stage, positivity rate continues to be double digit, rate of transmission, as we predicted, has crept up again. Many thousands of positives a day, but the hospitalization numbers have stayed in that range. Any insight on that? Any thoughts?
Right now, as we have repeatedly said over time, that hospitalizations and deaths are lagging indicators. So, typically if you see increases in cases, unfortunately, one would potentially predict that there might be more deaths that follow in subsequent weeks. But that said, given that the trend in cases is, somewhat plateauing a little bit, that, we would hope that the hospitalizations continue to stay kind of steady at this point.
Boy, let's hope so. And again, for folks, remember that today we're at 3,653. The peak was 8,270. But as Judy reminds me, that was also at a time when we had no elective surgeries in the state. So that's a lever we have not pulled. I hope we don't have to pull it, but that's a lever that still is available for us. Thank you for that. Alex, we'll go to you and then we'll come down to Matt.
Thanks, Governor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First question for you. Do you approve of Twitter's ban of President Trump's account? German Chancellor Angela Merkel has called it problematic. Why should President Trump be banned when leaders like Xi Jinping are still allowed free access on Twitter? I'd like to ask you a question about January 17th. Some progressives might want to counter-protest whatever's going to happen here. Are you going to implore your supporters to stay home and not get involved with these folks who are going to be at the State House potentially on Sunday? For Colonel Callahan, have you received any evidence or indications that any current or former members of the state police or law enforcement in New Jersey were in the crowd in the Capitol or potentially among the insurrectionists? Have you heard anything about that? And lastly, I want to ask about the preparations for the 17th. Obviously, you say you're ready, some barricades are up, but twice in the last year during a riot downtown on May 31st, and when there's a peaceful crowd of anti-vaccine advocates at the State House, they were peaceful, but they were jamming up the works inside. Law enforcement has lost control or come close to losing control of parts of Trenton. How can you and others guarantee that that same thing won't happen on Sunday?
So I'll start, Pat, and you're welcome to weigh in, and Jared may want to weigh in as well. Listen, I've run out of things to say about President Trump. I've been asked, if you were in the House, would you vote to impeach him? Yes, I would. If I were in the Senate, I'd vote to convict him. And if I were in his cabinet, I would join in the 25th Amendment afoot, even with only, 9 days to go. I'm normally a big freedom of speech guy, but I think when you're inciting insurrection, and you're the President of the United States, I think it's a bridge too far, to be honest with you. And I've got a lot of regard for Angelica Merkel, but I have to say that's where I come out. By the way, that's why I always stumble over your name. I have to say Angelica, because I used to saying her name in the German pronunciation. I'm going to say the following, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to weigh in. I would ask you on Sunday, January 17th, even if your heart is 1,000% in the right place, stay home. Stay home. There's just no need to get in the mix. Pat, you're welcome to answer whether or not there's any members of law enforcement. I'm not aware of any, but that's not to say there weren't. And by the way, if you're aware of someone would like to know, and this is, I assume you met at the Capitol last week. And I don't want you to think, and Pat, you should weigh in, or Jared, I don't want you to think to say that when I say things like all steps are being taken, that does not mean that we've got our feet up thinking we've got this all in the bag. We take all this very, very seriously, and we do not want to prepare for this in any way, shape, or form. But with that, Pat, anything on any of those?
Thank you, Governor. I do not know of any current or former state troopers that were involved in that in any way, shape, or form, Alex. It's not come to my attention. If it does, I will certainly let you know. And with regard to Sunday, we often say, as far as a guarantee goes, I'm not sure I could do that, but we need to bat 1,000 every day. And to the governor's point, we'll be prepared, and we trust that.
All right, folks, we want to go out live right now to a senator speaking right here on News Now from Fox.
That is unconscionable. That is unacceptable. This is America's temple of democracy, the United States Capitol. Inside it that day was the joint session of the United States Congress, virtually every member of the Senate, every member of the House, and the number 1, 2, and 3 line of succession to the presidency. We are going to have to ask a lot of questions about why the Capitol Police weren't able to protect the complex from attack. But one of the key questions is why we weren't able to draw upon Department of Defense resources much more quickly in order to prevent that debacle from occurring on Wednesday. Let me tell you a little bit about the state of the existing law. Right now, we require the mayor of the city and the chief of Capitol Police to make a request to the National Guard for protection. Now, in this case, as we know, the mayor made a request to the National Guard for help. That request was approved with limitations. The Guard was sent to do traffic duty around the White House and was not equipped with the lethal means that the Guard normally possesses. The Capitol Police did not make a request to the Guard to deploy and pre-position resources around the United States Capitol. That afternoon, when it was clear that the Capitol was going to be breached and that the Capitol Police could not protect it, they began the process of requesting assistance to the Capitol. But that process, as we've learned, was cumbersome and laborious. It apparently included getting sign-off from the board of directors of the Capitol Police, a process that looks like it took at least 30 to 60 minutes. And so by the time the police and the mayor had gone through the process of requesting the National Guard deployment, it was 2:30. At 2:30, I was being evacuated from the United States Capitol and on the way to a safe room. It was crystal clear by 2:30 that the Capitol Police could defend the building, and yet it took until 2:30 for even a request to be made to the Department of Defense for assistance. After the request was made, it took 3 hours for troops to arrive at the complex. Now, there's good reason why it took 3 hours. We rely on the National Guard to defend the United States Capitol. The National Guard, of course, are individuals who have other jobs. And so while there was a handful of National Guard personnel doing traffic duty that day, the National Guard that had to be brought to the United States Capitol had to leave their other jobs, go get into uniform, had to muster at the Armory before they could arrive to defend the Capitol. You can see how many breakdowns occurred. First, the refusal to pre-position National Guard assets. Second, the delay in making the request for National Guard relief. But then third, the amount of time that it actually took troops to arrive at the Capitol. To me, Wednesday is a before and after moment. We need to take a look at radical reform in the way that the Capitol is protected, in part because I don't think this insurgency is over. Obviously, there are big questions about what these lunatics are planning for this weekend and next week. But I think you have to assume that this insurgency against the federal government is going to continue into 2021. And there will be many other moments at which either the White House or the Capitol complex is at risk. Never again can it take 4 hours for the military to come to the defense of the Capitol or the White House. Ask yourself this: why on earth do we spend $700 billion on the military every year if it can't even protect the U.S. Capitol from attack? Now, there are rules in place about when active duty troops can be involved in domestic crowd control. And there are good reasons for that, right? We had a whole debate earlier this year about the belief that troops were being overused in the control of peaceful demonstrations. But included in this review has to be a question of whether the National Guard is actually equipped and ready to protect the Capitol, or whether we need a quicker ability for active duty forces that exist in and around Washington, D.C. to be able to come to the Capitol's defense. It may be that the protocols and the structures we have in place right now to defend the Capitol and the White House are wholly insufficient for this new moment that we exist in today, when there is some kind of organized insurgency to the federal government that still exists and still presents a threat to our government. So the letter that I'm going to be sending to the Acting Secretary of Defense today will ask for a complete review of both the statutes and the protocols around how the Department of Defense reacts to threats to the United States Capitol, and for changes to be put in place as soon as possible. Yes, we are going to have a lot bigger presence in and around the Capitol for the next 30 days. There are thousands of National Guard troops that are now permanently deployed to protect the Capitol and to protect the inauguration. But that presence is only guaranteed for 30 days. And if we are not going to have a permanent force encircling the Capitol, which is not my wish, then we have to have the ability for the military to be able to respond to an attack within 30 to 60 minutes, not 4 to 5 hours, as happened on Wednesday. So we are all, I think, working jointly together on efforts to learn lessons from Wednesday and to make the reforms necessary to have a successful and peaceful inauguration. But I think we are all also working on individual issues which draw particular concern for me. This issue of the nature of the military's response is very concerning. I have spoken directly to the Secretary about this already. I had several conversations with the Chief of the Capitol Police prior to his resignation. I spoke to many of my colleagues over the weekend about this, and I plan to pursue it in the coming days, and we'll be sending this correspondence to the Department of Defense within the next several hours. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Part we're working on, so I'd love for this to be bipartisan, and we're working on it. I'm going to send it today, even if it is just a handful of senators. The hope is that it'll be bipartisan.
The former chief of Capitol Police told the Washington Post that he asked for National Guard to be pre-positioned, and that the two sergeants at arms pushed back for reasons of optics and other reasons. Are you aware of that? And is this anything that's consistent with the conversation you had with the chief the day after?
It's not consistent with my conversation with the chief. That's not to say that his allegation isn't true, but I spoke at length with the chief at 11 o'clock on Wednesday night and at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. And in neither of those conversations did he mention he had wanted presence from the National Guard. And in fact, in both of those conversations, he defended to me the decision to go it alone without National Guard support. He told me and others that were on that, there was a handful of us on those calls from the Appropriations Committee. He told us in both of those conversations that they had no reason to believe there was going to be a crowd that big or as aggressive, and that they did not believe they needed National Guard support. So I was surprised to see his comments today. But again, this speaks to the complexity of the approval process that exists today. I mean, I think we just have to ask ourselves, should it require the consensus of the 2 sergeant-at-arms and the chief of police in order to get National Guard presence to the Capitol? Because if you require 3 people to be unanimous in their decision about how to protect the Capitol, you may not be able to protect the Capitol.
The Department of Defense has also reported figures that DC officials about their delay in making that request, and also that they kind of asked the department to respond when it did escalate tensions. Be prepared for what happened.
Well, I mean, Mayor Bowser asked for presence. She got it, but she got it with conditions. And she, is not the primary person responsible for defense of the United States Capitol. I don't, and to be honest, municipal police arrived very quickly. It was the Guard and DOD assets that took a long time. So Mayor Bowser got the municipal police to the Capitol very, very quickly. I think what we've learned is that there is a really complicated accountability structure for defense of the Capitol that involves the House Sergeant of Arms, the Senate Sergeant of Arms, the police of the Capitol, the mayor of the city, the Department of Defense. We're going to, especially as we head to the inauguration, we are going to have a unified command structure for defense of the Capitol, in which there is one person making decisions, not 10. And my point is that, well, that's important for the purposes of January 20th. That is also important for the purposes of August 20th and September 20th and October 20th, because I don't think you can assume that this is the last time that something like this is going to happen.
Your two chambers, co-equal chambers of a co-equal legislative branch. So, why one person? I mean, do you think you could get one, such a situation? Because it would seem to me that maybe people in the House might have one perspective, people in the Senate have another perspective, and it's not exactly like you guys listen to each other when the other chamber tells the other chamber what to do.
Yeah, so right. So your question is whether this is feasible. I think we have to make it feasible. I think in the wake of this national tragedy, we have to accept that the bureaucracy of a bicameral legislature got in the way of a more effective defense of the building. And so, maybe in a perfect world, the House and the Senate would both like to have a debate as to whether or not we bring the National Guard in to protect the building. I think we've got to consolidate this decision-making structure and give up a little bit of power from the House and the Senate, respectively.
The mayor of Washington, D.C. is responsible for the safety of the streets of Washington, D.C., on which those protesters marched, on which they headed down to the Capitol. So in any kind of congressional review, you're going to be looking at everybody.
Everybody.
Right? The mayor, the police, the Pentagon, the Capitol Police, Sergeant at Arms?
I don't mean for my remarks here today to suggest that I don't think there should be accountability for everyone involved. So I'm calling this press conference to announce the release of this specific letter on this specific issue of Department of Defense response and the protocols in place to call in the military support to the Capitol. But there are, listen, this was a systemic, massive failure. And everyone is going to bear some responsibility for what went wrong here. I just think that right now there's been a lot of focus on the Capitol Police. And to my mind, not enough focus on why it took so long for the United States military to get there. And some people have sort of suggested, well, you know, it's the National Guard. That's just how long the National Guard takes to get to the Capitol. We can't accept that any longer. We can't accept a world in which it takes 4 hours for the United States military to defend the U.S. Capitol from attack. And admittedly, as I said, there are differences when the attack is from a foreign threat versus a domestic threat, but you've got to be able to mobilize much more quickly than we did and they did.
So a lot of what you're talking about was the bureaucracy in calling up the Guard. So let's be clear, how confident are you about the security of the inaugural on January 20th?
I am worried that there is not yet a very clear, unified command structure for defense of the inauguration. I think we are learning lessons in real time. I think normally Secret Service takes primary responsibility for inaugural security. But I think in prior inaugurations, because there hasn't been as active a threat, there has been a diffusion of responsibility, and I don't think we can afford that this time around. So I do think there are active lessons being learned right now. There are conversations happening today about building a command structure for the inauguration that allows for very quick decisions to be made. I think if you look at the command structure that existed for prior inaugurations and you hypothesized what would happen if there was a attack on the inauguration, you would find that there was a lot of people who had to say yes before a response was mustered. And so I think we're trying to fix that right now. But I will say, it is not easy to do that when you don't have a Secretary of Defense and when you don't have a Secretary of Homeland Security. It is hard to do that when the president doesn't give a crap about the security of the inauguration. President Trump is still in charge. And part of the reason why Congress is talking about impeachment right now is because he is not being helpful in trying to guarantee the security of the inauguration. In fact, he seems to be doing more harm than good. And so as we try to make sure that the inauguration happens without incident, it appears to many of us that the only way we can guarantee that is to have somebody else in the commander-in-chief's role, because the current commander-in-chief is not working on trying to make sure the inauguration is peaceful.
Do you see a way to, there's no way for impeachment to lead to him being out of office before the 20th. Given that, do you think that you and other Democratic senators should be pressuring for the Senate to launch a trial should there be articles passed? Is it still worth it, considering that the impeachment would occur, the conviction would occur after the term?
Well, listen, this is an exceptional moment in America's history like no other we've seen. And exceptional things can happen at an exceptional moment. Listen, I think right now there are not likely anywhere close to the number of Republican votes you'd need to remove the president. I think there are many Republicans who are watching the president's behavior very closely and would support a speedy conviction if he starts inciting a move on the inauguration. So I think it's important to have these articles in front of the Senate so that we could act on them expeditiously if Republicans came to the conclusion that the only thing that could prevent an attack on the inauguration was the removal of the president. I don't think they are convinced of that right now, but I think it's important for the articles to be in front of the Senate in order to have that possibility even exist.
And assuming the status quo, if there is such a thing, it symbolically or legally matters whether the Senate starts the inauguration and it finishes afterwards?
I haven't thought about it. I don't have an answer for that yet.
The president can have adequate time to prepare and present a defense to articles of impeachment between now and next Wednesday. Is that fair to him?
I mean, what we're talking about is, the security of our country and the peaceful transition of power. Impeachment may be necessary because the president is leading a revolt against the United States government. I mean, it's unbelievable that I'm even saying those words out loud. But if that is in fact the case, and the president spends the next 10 days trying to muster an army of his fanatics to march on the inauguration, then I don't think that our primary concern would be whether he has enough time to mount an adequate defense to impeachment. Our primary concern would be to get him out of office so that democracy can continue for at least another 4 years.
Do his tweets followed by his speech, do they constitute sufficient evidence to convict him of incitement?
Well, let me read the articles of impeachment. I mean, listen, I've been clear that we should begin an impeachment process. You're asking me to sort of render a judgment on the articles. Let me read the articles before I render a judgment. But yes, but the president clearly incited those protesters to march on the Capitol. He should have known, and he did know, what the possibility was once they arrived. He has continued to inflame the situation since then. He has made things worse, not better, even after 4 people died. The totality of his conduct is clearly worthy of impeachment or removal from office. And I'm not even sure that many of my Republican colleagues disagree with that. I think many of my Republican colleagues don't want to move forward with impeachment because they don't think we have enough time, or they think that we should be focusing on other things. But yeah, his conduct is clearly worthy of impeachment.
Are you satisfied that he has defeated the election?
Strong words there from Senator Chris Murphy. We'll continue to follow this right here for you on News Now from Fox.
You could tell he wasn't happy saying it. And by the next morning, he was tweeting out once again that he wasn't showing up to the inauguration, a statement that clearly undermined the idea that he had conceded the election and Joe Biden was the legitimate president. So the tweet the next morning seemed to be a clear signal to his followers to ignore what I said last night.
Stand by. What's your position on the 14th Amendment for members of the House and Senate who voted for the rejecting the Electoral College?
I haven't come to any conclusion on that. Listen, I think it's important for us to, have a conversation about consequences for individuals, at very least the individuals who led the effort to try to overturn the election results. But I haven't come to the conclusion as to whether that merits censure or expulsion. I don't have an answer for that yet. I'd have to sort of study the history of it.
Well, should members of Congress who might be held accountable or might be seen as responsible for egging on that crowd or inciting that crowd, shouldn't they also? I mean, shouldn't you guys be doing it? If you're ready to impeach and remove the President of the United States, shouldn't you also be willing to turn a critical eye inward and take action regarding your own? I mean, nobody else can, but the Senate and the House can discipline their members.
Well, I think the immediate threat to the safety of the nation is the President of the United States. These people follow his every word in a way that they do not for members of the United States Senate or the House of Representatives. So the president bears a special responsibility. His words have a special ability to incite, and it is why we are appropriately focused on whether we can have a peaceful transition of power with this president in office. I think you're not wrong that we need to look inward, but this is an emergency, right? The emergency requires that we do extraordinary things to make sure that we don't have a second rebellion. And right now, the question of accountability for members of Congress is not as central to the preservation of democracy as the question of accountability for the president.
The vice president goes forward, or changes what rather, and votes for 20%. Do you think Congress should go forward with impeachment anyway, and possible?
No, if the 25th Amendment, if the 25th Amendment process is used, then there is not reason, in my mind, for the Congress to move forward with impeachment.
And when it comes to, I mean, you're saying in front of the state capitol, as you make this call federally, is there any concern locally? Or have you had any conversations locally? We're in our state capitol, we're seeing barriers. It's a different place than it was a week ago. What's that like?
Yeah, I've had extensive conversations with the governor, with Commissioner Ravella. I will be on the phone later today with the special agent, with the FBI special agent in charge. Listen, clearly there is information out there regarding armed marches on state capitals, as well as the United States Capitol. And, I am hopeful that, we won't see anything serious here in Connecticut, but what we learned on Wednesday is to prepare for the worst case and not assume the best case. And so I've been in close touch with state officials to make sure that effective communication is happening between the FBI, federal government, and state government. It appears that that communication is happening, and there's robust coordination between state officials, the Department of Public Safety, and federal officials, but I will continue those efforts, and I've advised the state leadership to be prepared in a way that we weren't prepared in Washington. You were in the Capitol building when all this stuff went down. Can you just sort of describe what you were feeling when it became clear that the security forces couldn't, protect the building? Yeah, I was in the Senate chamber and learned, via social media that they had breached the building, and it was shortly thereafter that the Senate debate was suspended and the chamber was locked down. I never, felt that, my safety was immediately in danger. It was clearly a harrowing experience, one that I don't desire to go through again. But at the same time, we were in the Senate chamber in lockdown for about 15 to 20 minutes. We were then evacuated into the safe room, and at no point, did I have any direct or immediate confrontation with the rioters. And I'm grateful to the, Capitol Police officers who protected us in the chamber and who, helped lead us to safety. Others of my colleagues had very different experiences. So there were House members that, were within earshot of the gunfire, were very close to the protesters. There were senators who got stuck outside of the Senate chamber who had different experiences than I did.
Beyond the delay this last time, why do you think we launched it? Made their intentions quite clear in the lead up to the
I mean, this is one of the big outstanding questions, why we didn't see this coming. If you've been tracking QAnon and QAnon message boards, that movement is built around this nonsensical idea of a storm, and that there was plenty of traffic about January 6th being the storm. That alone should have given you a sign that something bad could happen. Listen, clearly there should have been pre-positioned National Guard forces there. If they had been there in significant numbers, it may be that there would have never been a breach of the security line, never mind the Capitol itself. Your question is why? Obviously we don't have the answer to that yet. a lot of people have asked, is there a double standard, right? Why was the National Guard standing in front of the Capitol for the BLM protests, and they weren't when it was Donald Trump's supporters who marched on the Capitol? I mean, I've said since Wednesday, I certainly believe there's a double standard. I think that if these were Black Lives Matter protesters, they would have been treated much more roughly, and there would have been thousands of them in jail. So I do think it was a double standard, and that double standard probably extended to preparation.
And we will continue to listen here to Senator Chris Murphy on the other side of the break.
Invalidation of future eligibility for office, and so that would clearly be one of the questions that we would, that we would pursue as part of impeachment. So, but let's be honest, he's gonna be a major political figure in this country, regardless of whether he's impeached or not. And so and his movement, which is now a violent movement, is not going away either. So we are unfortunately going to live in a world in which the things Donald Trump says over the next 4 years, puts the safety of our country at risk on a minute-by-minute basis. We will be able to lock up a lot of these folks. We will put some of the leaders of this effort in jail for a long time. But, he's still going to be a menace, whether or not he's president and whether or not he's eligible to run for office in the future.
Senator, what's your take on social media platforms and going on these lines of, they're private companies, but they're now censoring? I mean, is that a freedom of speech issue? What's your take?
Well, they're not censoring, right? Censoring is a government action. They are private companies that are not obligated to partake in the overthrow of their government. So, this idea that a private company is required to allow insurrection to be planned on its platform is ludicrous. That they do not have that responsibility, and in fact, they have a moral responsibility to disallow it. So, I think I think that while I applaud these platforms from taking down Parler, it is probably just a matter of time before Parler is back up and running and once again available to this right-wing lunacy. So I think there's a limit to how much these companies can sort of stuff the genie back in the bottle, but it is their moral and patriotic obligation to not participate in seditious conduct.
Senator, what's your view of the role of guns, especially black guns, in this insurgency, this movement? There were not guns brandished inside the Capitol by any members of the invading mob, to my awareness. What's your view of that? Do you see it as parallel in some way? Do you see it as one thing is a peaceful movement and the other is not? What's your view? You've talked a lot, obviously, about guns since 2013.
Yeah.
2012.
Well, these calls online right now for activity on the 17th and the 19th and the 20th include calls for individuals to bring weapons to these protests. So, we're still trying to get a read on how many weapons were amongst the crowd on the 6th. That call to action did not include a request to bring weapons, right? Whereas this one does.
There were accommodations.
So I think you have to be much more worried about the upcoming activities and whether they are going to be more heavily armed. And listen, this is amongst the top 10 most important debates right now. The question of assault weapons laws is not on it. But, I mean, for those of us who have been concerned about the proliferation of AR-15s, one of our fears has been that law enforcement will get outgunned. And, we have thought about that more in the context of active shooter incidences. But, these are military-style weapons, and if you're involved in a shootout outside of the United States Capitol and the protesters have weapons that are just as powerful as yours and designed to kill as many people as quickly as possible, that's a big problem.
Do you see parallels or big differences or a little of both between the Second Amendment rights / anti-gun control movement and this attack on the government?
I mean, that sounds like a little bit more complicated question than I can answer off the top of my head. I mean, I think this is a cult of personality mixed with a sort of QAnon cult following. I mean, this is really about a cult of personality surrounding Donald Trump and individuals who are intent in keeping him in power no matter what. I think that's primarily the organizing feature of these folks.
Is DC open carry, concealed carry, do you have to have a DC permit? I mean, does anybody who show up with a firearm will be in trouble if they don't live in DC and have a DC issued permit?
Yeah, I don't know all those all those off the top of my head. Yeah, but obviously, listen, Connecticut is is an open carry state, and so that's one of the things that I talk to the. Right. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
That was Senator Chris Murphy there, Democrat from Connecticut, talking all about the riots that took place last week on Capitol Hill and what some are looking that could happen again come Inauguration Day there. So we're going to take another quick 2-minute break right here for you on News Now from Fox. Any moment right now, we're expecting the Texas governor to give an update on the vaccination rollout there, and we'll be bringing that to you live here on News Now from Fox. In the meantime, let's go to Chicago, where some schools are reopening for in-classroom learning.
Everyone has a role. Every stakeholder is important in order to make a school environment safe and nurturing for our students. So I want to thank everybody here at Dawes, but across the city, who's really contributed mightily to this moment. Let me highlight some of the things that I saw here at Dawes, but I know are being replicated across the school. Clean and well-ventilated classrooms and ample space for students and staff to remain 6 feet apart. Plenty of masks, hand sanitizer stations, and other protective measures to keep everyone safe and in accordance with the latest public health guidance. And above all, excited and engaged students who are clearly thrilled to be back in the classroom and safely reunited with their teachers and classmates. Again, as I was walking through some of these pre-K classrooms, I was reminded of my daughter's experience in school and how the youngest learners are so excited to be with their classmates, to be with their teachers, and to really have this connection that really becomes something that is lifelong and influences their ability to have friendships and understand the importance of social and emotional learning. I'm feeling very nostalgic having walked back into these classrooms about how important that is, I know, for my daughter, and how important that is for children and their parents and their families across the city. And although today isn't the first day of school, it is our city's first day of embarking on our path to returning to in-person learning since that learning stopped more than 300 days ago. Back then, our city was in a very different place, when every single day was another step into uncharted territory. And we were just beginning to learn what exactly COVID-19 was, how it spreads, and what its impact was going to be on all aspects of our lives. Since then, we've not only become equipped with more data and resources, but also with a vaccine and a path that points towards, hopefully, the end of this terrible crisis. We've also grown tremendously as a city by finding ways to come together, guided by the values of equity and inclusion and fairness, to address the challenges that the pandemic both created but also exacerbated underlying, long-standing fault lines in our city. Today marks a huge step forward in making sure that we are addressing those long-standing issues. And at the top of the list is educational equity and achievement issues. The quick changes and sacrifices made by CPS, our teachers, and our entire school community back then to create a remote learning model to support our students has really been incredibly incredible and also heroic during very difficult and challenging times. However, we've learned over these many months that the fact of the matter is remote learning, while it works just fine for some, it absolutely has not served all of our students equally or well. While some students have been able to continue their studies and advance their academic careers, too many others, especially in our highest need students and our highest need neighborhoods, have had the opposite experience. We all know, and it was really underscored to me today, that the best learning for our youngest learners involves social and emotional interactions with their teachers, with their students, with their staff, in an environment of support and nurturing. In-person provides the best opportunity for a holistic approach to learning for our students, and so much more. To deny these students and their parents the option.
And we're going to take another quick 2-minute break for you right here on News Now from Fox.
And to address some of the challenges that they have faced remotely. That would be wrong. And we need to give the option of the enhanced benefits that in-person learning brings, no question. So providing that option is entirely consistent with our values of equity and inclusion and leaving no student behind, regardless of her circumstances, her zip code, her background. We need to build this path forward, and we've started with that today. And let me be clear. I also understand and hear and see those who are concerned about returning to in-person instruction. And let me say specifically to the teachers and other staff who have expressed these concerns. I want to assure you that we have and we will continue to take every step possible to address those concerns in a way that is consistent with the public health guidance. We've started down that path really weeks ago by granting a range of accommodations for those who must opt out of in-person instruction. And we have and we will continue to listen and engage so that we can walk down this path together. That's the important part. I said this just a few days ago. This process has to be about substantive, collaborative engagement so that we are walking forward together. We may not agree on every issue, but we have to keep the lines of dialogue open. We have to come to the table in a spirit of good faith. That's what we are committed to, and we want to make sure that those opportunities exist so we can move forward together. We can focus first and foremost on our young people, our children, and what is in their best interest. It's now the middle of the school year. And if we want our children to receive everything that they rely upon from schools, from lessons to social services, meals, and in some cases, physical, speech, and occupational therapy, and much more, we have to give them access to a safe and nurturing environment in which to thrive. And the reality is that not every student has access to those kinds of resources in a remote, at-home environment. So it's up to us as elected leaders and public servants, as principals, educators, to step up, come together, and create those safe environments for students and their families. There's a lot that's been said over these last few weeks, and there's a lot that's being said today and every day about what's happening at CPS. And what that says to me is our public education system is key to our success as a city. And what I mean by that is providing the educational opportunities for our students and our young people is core to who we must be as a city. We can't get any of the other things done that are necessary, whether it's economic development, whether it's addressing the violence in our neighborhoods, the mental health and the trauma, if we don't have a strong and vibrant, healthy public school system. It is core. It is the ecosystem. It is the skeleton on which we build everything else. CPS is absolutely essential to who we are. Strengthening CPS in every way, in collaboration with the entire school community, is what we must be about. Why? Because our children depend upon it. As adults, as leaders, we must put our kids front and center first in everything that we do. And that is what has to be the only thing on the table as we are discussing important issues about today, but importantly about the future. I want to thank the Principal Dixon and really all the principals and assistant principals across our system who have been doing yeoman's work, not just leading up to this moment, but all year round. They have been here in these buildings, making sure that our kids are getting fed, that our people who are here in the buildings are safe and healthy. Let's not forget that and them. Let me also again thank the staff who have been in these buildings all year round, particularly the cafeteria workers, the janitors, the security. They haven't been anywhere. They've been here in these schools all year round, making sure that our kids have a lifeline to the schools and a connection. I also want to thank the teachers that are working today, whether remote or in person, who are going and have been going above and beyond to make sure that our kids feel a sense of love and connection and support. Thank you for everything, teachers, that you have done every single day as well. We need you. We need you to continue our journey, our necessity, our obligation and responsibility to make sure that our kids get a safe and nurturing academic environment and that they are learning and growing as young people, as human beings. That's our obligation, and you are at the center of that necessary work. And let me thank every stakeholder in our school community who's been willing to come to the table to create sustainable and substantive solutions that work for all of our students. Again, the only issue on the table has to be what's in the best interest of our young people, our students. Because if we have that front and center, if we focus on that, all the rest will follow. Because building that safe and nurturing environment for them means creating a safe and nurturing environment for the entire school community. Thank you again, Dr. Jackson, Chief McDade, and the entire CPS executive team who have been working tirelessly over many weeks, the network chiefs. This doesn't happen without a lot of people making tremendous sacrifices, and we all owe you a debt of gratitude. I'm excited about today. As I said, I'm very nostalgic seeing these youngest kids. It reminds me so much of tender moments that I've experienced myself with my daughter and her young friends when they were very young in pre-K and elementary school. This is what we have to keep front and center. This is what we must be about. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And I'd love to welcome Dr. Jackson to the podium to say it.
We're going to take another quick 2-minute break right for you here on News Now from Fox.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank Mayor Lightfoot for her comments today and her leadership throughout this process. I would also like to echo her thoughts and sentiments to Mary Dixon, the principal here, and her entire administrative staff, as well as the network staff that have been working extremely hard in order to make this a possibility. They exemplify the professionalism and commitment that is, embodied in all of our schools across the city. So I want to thank them for showing up here today and also for their excitement. Like the mayor, I came in with a lot of excitement and anticipation, but really happy to see our students, our youngest students, some of our most vulnerable students here today learning, because they deserve a quality education. And I was even more excited to see the professionalism and commitment amongst our teachers that showed up here today. It's been 10 months since our students have been in school, and I know everyone signed up to do this work for the same exact reason, and that is to provide our kids with the quality education they deserve. I want to also thank the teachers that are working from home, as Mayor Lightfoot mentioned in her comments. They too are providing a quality education for our students. And despite all of the work that we've done over the past 10 months, we know that remote learning is not an option for all of our students. There are many students and families, 77,000 in fact, that have chosen an in-person option, and I'm excited about the possibility to offer that at this time. It is our mission in Chicago Public Schools to bring all of our students back over the course of the next few months in order to be reintegrated in the classroom with their teachers and their peers. In order to do this, CPS has been preparing since last summer. We've talked about our reopening plan at length, but I really want to remind people of all the preparation that has taken place in order to ensure the health and safety of our students and staff. We purchased air purifiers, face coverings, an abundant amount of cleaning and disinfecting supplies. We've also made significant building improvements throughout the city to ensure that all of our schools have the proper ventilation necessary. We've also studied schools across the country and right here in the city that have reopened, and all of the learnings from that research went into the reopening plan that we are executing today. We've gone above and beyond the requirements from CDC and CDPH in order to ensure that our students and staff are safe, and we are not done. In addition to the strict health protocols that we have now put in place, Chicago Public Schools is now implementing a voluntary COVID-19 surveillance testing program for school-based staff. This program launched last week and will help the district monitor the prevalence of COVID-19 among asymptomatic staff in our schools. Employees who participate in the program will be tested monthly at their schools. We will be administering rapid tests, and those findings will be available in as little as 15 minutes. Any staff member with a presumptive positive will be offered a PCR COVID-19 test at the school the same day. Rapid test results, as well as PCR results, will be quickly communicated to families and staff in the schools. Beginning today, later today, you will be able to follow and track that data on our website, cps.edu/reopening. Please note that testing is voluntary, but we strongly encourage all school-based employees to participate. While over 20% of school-based employees chose not to participate in our surveillance testing program last week, we want to continue to encourage them to do so. This is, in fact, one of the things that we agreed upon with the teachers union that needed to be in place in order to have a successful reopening to school. This is just one more step in our plan to ensure that our staff and students remain healthy and safe in our schools. Again, I want to thank the staff that returned to school.
All right, everybody, here on News Now from Fox, where we go to live events as they are happening. Taking you out to Texas right now, we have the governor speaking, talking about the vaccination rollout in that state as well.
All right, I want to thank everybody for being here today. I will warn you in advance. There's going to be a lot of detailed information. Be prepared to be writing down as much as you possibly can. I want to thank everybody for joining this process, and as well as thank our host here in Arlington for hosting this fabulous event. I will go more into this event momentarily, but I want to recognize Mayor Jeff Williams, County Judge Glenn Whitley, the Texas Health Resources CEO Barclay Burden. We got Fire Chief Don Croson, as well as Tarrant County Health Director Vinny Taneja, and who have I missed? Anyway, listen, I just had the opportunity to go inside and to visit this operation. And the way that everybody receiving the vaccination talked about it, they said they had never seen an operation run so effectively, so smoothly, so swiftly, and so easily. They said this is the easiest thing they have ever done going through this process. And so I want to applaud everybody with Arlington and Tarrant County for everything they did to streamline this process. The process used here in Arlington today is being replicated in many locations across the state of Texas, as I will go into shortly. But let me start out with this. Never before in the history of this state has Texas vaccinated so many people so quickly. Let's put this in context. It was 1 month ago this day that emergency use authorization was provided for the Pfizer vaccine. It was not until the middle part of the next week until the Pfizer vaccine was distributed and began to be used for Texans in the state. And in that first week, after the emergency use authorization was granted, only about 26,000 vaccines were administered. Then Friday of that next week, December the 18th, is when the Moderna vaccine was authorized. It wasn't until the middle part of Christmas week that the Moderna vaccine was actually being administered. And so when you look at the timeline of what's been done, all of the vaccines that have been distributed in the state of Texas has been only over the course of about 3.5 weeks. And so it's just astonishing when you realize that the fact that we've only been working for about 3.5 weeks to make vaccines available and to administer them, and then also doing so during the time of both Christmas and New Year's, it's stunning to see what we've accomplished. And what I want to do now is to run through some very important numbers about the number of vaccines that have been provided and administered, the ones that are still on hold, and what the incoming supplies look like. In just 3.5 weeks, the state has distributed 1,580,400 doses that have been shipped to providers across Texas. Of those, 800, and these are numbers effective today. You may have seen different numbers yesterday, but effective today, it's been reported to MTRAC that 802,507 of those doses have been administered to Texans. Of those, 83,538 are second doses. As you know, when you receive either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, you have a first dose, and then either 3 or 4 weeks later, you receive your second dose. Now, when you do all the math, you will see that there still remains, of those numbers that I provided to you, 777,897 doses that are either not yet reported or are waiting to be given to Texans. And I'll explain more about those numbers in a second. Importantly, however, separate from those numbers I just gave to you, and in addition to those numbers I just gave you, Texas has also provided 487,500 doses for nursing and for long-term care centers. CVS and Walgreens are in charge of administering those doses that Texas has provided them. As of last night, 75,312 of those doses have been reported being given to long-term care and nursing home residents. That means there are 412,188 of those doses for long-term care and nursing home residents that either have not yet been reported or are waiting to be given to long-term care residents. Now, importantly, all of these numbers are changing on a daily basis.
All right, folks, we are going out live right now to Delaware. You got Joe Biden there's about to get his second vaccine dose right here live. Let's listen in.